Hey there, I'm Tracy Rigdon, and this is the Contrast Project Lounge Podcast. In this podcast, each episode is a journey through captivating interviews, engaging dialogues, and personal anecdotes that explore the depths of arts, culture, politics, and everything in between. My goal? To leave you inspired, informed, and entertained. Often random, but always relevant, always real, and practically nothing is off limits. So whether you're an art aficionado, a political junkie, or simply someone seeking a fresh perspective, this podcast is for you. Are you ready for this? Let's do it. Welcome back to the program, kids. I have with me right now the diversity manager for the City of Jacksonville, Florida, Mr. Jimmy Midyette. Jimmy, how are you doing? And thank you for coming to the show.
I'm doing really great, Tracy, and I sure do appreciate you having me on. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, and I'm loving this fall weather.
You and me both. It's been a nice reprieve from the summer heat, that's for sure.
I know. So you've been appointed to the administration, the new administration for the City of Jacksonville, one that I applaud wholeheartedly. I've been a supporter of Donna Deegan's for the longest time, and thank God that the City of Jacksonville is making strides going forward. It seems to me that and I'm looking at the administration, and it appears to be, and I think appears to everyone, that it's one of the most diverse and inclusive administration that the city has ever had.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Whenever Donna was running, and a lot of us call her Donna because that's how we know her. She was in our living rooms, for so many years as a newscaster.
Yeah.
So it's not a sign of disrespect.
Yeah.
She's Mayor Deegan, but she's also Donna. And when Donna was running, she made a real commitment to Jacksonville that she would make sure that her administration looks like the city that it's intended to represent. And that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to support her, early on in the campaign and then throughout. And then whenever there was an opportunity to maybe go and do some work for her, I put myself out there as somebody willing to do that. And I was really pleased that she decided to ask me to come on board along with so many great other folks, from really all walks of life, from all ideologies. She's been very methodical in ways about staffing up in a bipartisan, multiracial, just diverse way, and it's to Jacksonville's benefit.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. The city has needed this breath of fresh air for a long time. Now, as the diversity manager of the City of Jacksonville, describe to us, our friends, fans, followers, your key responsibilities and how you aim to promote diversity inclusion in the community.
Great question. So I'm technically housed within a part of the city called the Jacksonville Human Rights Commission, and the work of the Jacksonville Human Rights Commission is to enforce our non-discrimination ordinances, which I had a role to play in helping to amend a few years ago whenever we added sexual orientation and gender identity to our list of protected categories in the city. So now I find myself in the city department that is tasked with making sure that people are able to rent an apartment, go out to a restaurant, or stay in a hotel, or really access any job, any public accommodation, any piece of housing without being worried about being discriminated against based on who they are. So my work as diversity manager within the Human Rights Commission puts me right on the front lines of the things we've been talking about. And today, for example, I was out at the FSCJ doing a table and just talking to students about their rights. It happens to be, as we record this, it happens to be coming out day, and so I was able to be out for the FSCJ student coming out day celebration, where I just talked to them about all the various rights that they have by virtue of being Jacksonvillians or Jacksons, depending on whether you which of those titles you like to use. My buddy Bill Delaney really likes the word Jackson, and I really like Jacksonvillian. So, but in addition to those things, we've been very busy with the aftermath of the racist motivated shooting in the Newtown neighborhood.
Yes.
Bringing together the community and talking about resources that are available, and just talking about how diversity is a strength. And whenever we have people coming into Jacksonville from out of the community, with racist ideas and literally, hurting our fellow citizens, that has an impact. And so the Human Rights Commission has been talking about that a lot, and trying to think of ways that we can come together and have more dialogue around the city about our differences, and why those are things that we should celebrate rather than have them be things that motivate us to do harm to one another. So this is right up my alley. Things that I think are very important for a city the size of Jacksonville, and it's great to work for a mayor that's committed to it. In addition to having me on at the Human Rights Commission, she has Dr. Parvez Ahmed from the university, formerly from the University of North Florida, as the chief of diversity and inclusion for the whole city. So the things that I've been talking about, he's doing them on an even more macro level, just out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then my closest boss that I work with is a guy named Dr. Rudy Jameson, who is a fantastic understander of diversity, and he's running the Human Rights Commission, and it's really just a dream team in my mind of just great professionals, people who love this city, who love Jacksonville with all their heart, working on these things together.
And that's a fantastic thing. You mentioned, and like I said, the city of Jacksonville has just become a beacon with the new administration, with all the diversity and inclusion. Her administration is just extremely impressive, very impressive. And she was recently the Grand Marshal at the Pride Parade in the Riverside area, first of its kind in Jacksonville, Florida, a mayor being the Grand Marshal at the Pride Parade.
That's right. Yeah, just this past weekend, very recently, she was right there in the convertible at the front of the line. Her husband Tim Deegan was in the convertible there with her. She had a great time, and her message for everyone is this city is for everyone. And so to see her busting so many barriers, having so many historic firsts, just her election is a historic first because she's the first woman to be the mayor of Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And so I think we're in for 8 years of really great, and I say 8 years of really just phenomenal work.
Yeah. You say 8 years, and I totally agree with you. I think it's going to be 8 years. She's a phenomenal woman. Yeah, she's a phenomenal woman, and she's got a great business sense to her. A lot of people tend to denigrate, the woman because of her, woke ideology, quote, woke ideology. But I think because of her ideology throughout the years, that's exactly why she is the new mayor. Now, with your partnerships and collaborations, you worked with organizations, including like the ACLU, Equality Florida, that kind of thing. Tell us about your experiences and the impact of these collaborations within the community.
Well, sure. So going way back, I got my start. I'm a lawyer by trade, as folks, your fans and
Mm-hmm.
followers may know that. But I'm trained as a lawyer and have been around the legal system for a very long time. I got my start as a lawyer at Jacksonville Area Legal Aid a long time ago, and I have stayed, very close to concerns that really matter to people. And whenever I was a staff attorney at the ACLU of Florida, I worked on pretty complex constitutional cases having to do with the rights of transgender folks to access health care, or the rights of constituents to not be blocked on social media by their elected representatives. And those kinds of experiences and cases were just instrumental to me in learning new areas of the law, and how those, why those things matter to people just out in the world. And then I kind of went from working at the ACLU to working for Equality Florida for a while. Now, of course, I had been friendly with Equality Florida for a very long time, because they were very helpful to us in Jacksonville when we were passing our human rights ordinance update back in 2017. And in well, it was a whole 10-year stretch, really, from 2010 until like 2017, 2018. So um, just having those connections, being able to pick up the phone and call, an expert constitutional lawyer if I need to, kind of figure out what's happening with the courts, or to be able to pick up the phone and call, a leader like Nadine Smith at Equality Florida, or to be able to pick up the phone and call a leader like Cindy Watson at Jasmine, more locally. Those are the things I think that are helpful to me in this role, and that the mayor recognized could be used to kind of leverage the relationships that I have to do this kind of work
Right.
and make sure that everyone feels included.
Oh, fantastic. Now, challenges that you have faced personally, advocacy work can be quite challenging. What are some of the hurdles that you have faced personally, uh, working as an advocate, as an ally, and how did you overcome them?
So one of the biggest challenges that you face when you're doing social change work is that different parts of a community, while we are certainly united, may have different ideas about how to accomplish the goal. So at
Yeah.
times you have to be not just an activist on the front lines, but you also have to be someone who's sort of mediating the community, and doing strategy sessions on the sidewalk with people to try and figure out, okay, is this the time to have a march, or is this the time to sit respectfully in a corporate suite, talking to CEOs.
Right.
And so that's a big challenge to kind of weigh those out. And the only way to make change that I can tell is you have to be able to do both. You have to find the right time, the right mix of sort of activism and respectability politics, to throw out a phrase that some people will use. And so for me personally, as somebody who's really committed to making change and making Jacksonville the best place it can be, that was a challenge. Another challenge that I've kind of overcome or hurdle to be jumped was, um, I'm a native of Jacksonville, so sometimes it's really hard to see your home whenever you've always lived in it. And so that's why it's important that we invite and kind of welcome people who are from different places to sit at our tables with us, and help us understand, well, how are things done in whatever other place? How did this fight get done in Atlanta? How did they do this in Orlando? Not because that's going to be a roadmap, but just because it's useful to know for those of us, few of us who are natives, to understand how other places work and wrestle through these things. So those are a couple of the things that I've been kind of cognizant of. And the third thing is as well. And this is where it kind of gets you. We each all have our own biases that we have to overcome. when we're doing intersectional social change work. So, you know, I am as white as I could possibly be. And so I have to just get it out of my head right now that I know anything about what it's like to be a black person in Jacksonville, or, you know, someone who struggles with gender identity, or someone who is a woman, you know. So to me, you have to sort of, you know, figure out what you don't know, and then surround yourself to the extent you can with people who have those diverse experiences, so that you're not creating, even within your own, you know, set little segment of the community, an echo chamber, where you know, you're trying to solve the world's problems without the involvement of the people who are most impacted. So big, you know, and that's an ego thing. That's all kinds of things. But you have to be able to you have to be willing to stand up and say, hey, wait a second, I don't know everything, and in fact, I probably don't even know what I don't know at this point. So we got to get some other folks in here. Those are the things that you know,
Yeah.
that have
Yeah.
been challenging to me, and that's where I've kind of landed.
Yeah, I could tell you from my own personal experience. You know, I was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida, and spent some time living abroad. And I was married to a black Hispanic woman, and I have a black Hispanic stepdaughter, and
Hmm.
I have gay people within my family, lots of them, even a daughter who identifies as bisexual, and lots of friends that are, you know, within all kinds of communities. So I have been an ally for a great deal of my adult life, and unapologetically, I love every single one of them. And I still love my ex-wife. I still love my stepdaughter. I still love all the kids in my family that have different colors. I have cousins and nephews, and you know, and it's never been an issue to me. And I, one of the things I want to ask you, as someone who is involved in the community, and uh, someone that happens to be an ally, you are an ally. I
Mm.
know that. Community engagement. How do you engage with the local community to create awareness uh,
Hmm.
on your level, uh, both personally and professional? How do you engage with the community to create awareness about human rights and diversity issues, and how others can get involved?
So that's a great question, and you are a great ally. You're exactly right, and we have to realize that we are, you know, in each of our spheres, you know, we are who we are. So you know, I'm a middle-aged gay white guy, and I try to be an ally to, you know, to people who are trans, or who, you know, people of color, to gender diverse folks.
Yes, yes.
Um, so one of the ways that I have worked on that is to make sure to always show up for others. Always show up for others. So, you know, in the context of fighting for LGBT rights in Jacksonville, we would have rallies and events and things. And and I would want those to be very diverse. I would want to make sure that, you know, everyone was welcome to those events. And the only
Hmm.
way to roll out the red carpet and expect people to actually participate with you is when they have seen you out participating with them. So, you know, I've spoken at rallies related to immigration at the southern border. I've spoken to rallies related to a woman's right to choose. I've spoken to rallies related to, you know, what's going on with criminal justice reform and some of the police issues that are out there. I've spoken at rallies related to what's happening with our
Hmm.
trans community and the awful bans on trans healthcare, and more, right? And it's not just I've spoken at; it's also I have stood in the audience at, and I have made phone calls to, and I have written a little. I don't have a lot of money. I work, you know, I work for I've always worked for nonprofits, and now I work, in public service. So I don't have a lot of money, but
Yeah.
what I do have, I try and spread around to make sure that I'm doing the things. So the point of all that is that if you show people that you are with them, then they will show up and be with you. That's my theory of social change. That I have this problem over here that I need to solve, and she has that problem over there that she needs to solve, and he's got this other thing over here. So on some level, we're going to do all of them. Which one is more urgent might, depend on what's on the news headlines tonight, but we're going to get to everybody. And because I can be authentic in that way, because I have developed myself as an authentic voice on these issues, it's a little easier now for me to move in the spaces. So, if anyone is interested in getting involved, one of the things that has really been a boon to this whole area is social media. It's what you and I are doing right now. Being involved in this, user created content, if you will. And Twitter is a huge, that's what I'm going to call it. I'm not calling it by another name. It's there's an old saying, his mama named him Twitter. I'm calling him Twitter. So I'm calling Twitter. But going on Twitter or TikTok or Instagram or all the new things that people do, that's a great place to be in community with people and to stay in touch. I know there's a lot of gray in my hair, but reality is that there's so much energy happening online that's where you have to be. So those are my thoughts about how to stay engaged and how to be a person who shows up, and how to find ways to show up for others. And if you do those things, you'll be successful.
Oh, yeah. Now, the role of politics. Given your background, how do politics intersect with the pursuit of human rights? And what role can politicians, specifically, local politicians, what can local politicians do or play in advancing these causes?
So, politics is a huge conversation. It's a huge part of what I've done. I've stood for election. I've done that before myself. I didn't get elected, but I learned a lot. And I met a lot of people in the process and learned a lot about how things work. So the opportunities for local elected leaders to impact human rights is tremendous. The reality is, whenever, and I just go back to the HRO because it's like a little study that you can almost look at. When we began in 2010 working on the human rights ordinance, we didn't have a commitment from a local elected person. And then whenever we filed our first bill, Council Member Warren Jones, who's on the school board now, is the person who filed the bill for us. And that bill went down 17-2. 17 council members voted against it, and only 2 council members voted for it. And they were Warren Jones and Denise Lee, who just passed away. So that was in 2012.
Yeah.
5 years later, in 2017, we had been through 2, well, really 1, but a critical electoral season. So my community got really smart about elections, and we put together a political action committee, and we endorsed candidates, and we knocked on doors, and we made phone calls, and we wrote checks so that we could help put together the kind of a city council that we would need whenever we came back to get the human rights ordinance passed. And that's exactly what we did. We got involved in who would be the mayor. We got involved in who would be on the council. And by doing that, a few things, right? We made relationships with those people. Like, whenever you're in the trenches with these folks, helping them to get elected, they are much more likely to be, amenable to your phone call whenever you make it. So it's just so important to do that. And so what I would say is that local politicians, whether it's a council member or the sheriff or mayor, they all have a tremendous role to play whenever it comes to human rights in our city. the last city council, voted to put together whole new categories of people in our human rights ordinance, and expanded, the promise of I'm going to try that again. You're probably going to end up cutting that. Just put together these new categories into the human rights law of Jacksonville that just covered, new people. So it's critical, and it goes way back. So I told you about Warren Jones, being the sponsor of our bill in 2012. Well, in 2007, when I was a kid and didn't know anything, I actually ran for city council, and I was in the same race as Warren Jones. And whenever the dust settled, Warren kicked all of our butts by a lot, because he knew what he was doing, and I was just a dumb kid. I didn't know anything. But here's what I did know. After that point, I knew Warren Jones because we had been in a campaign together. We had talked about our ideas for Jacksonville together. And whenever it came time to find a sponsor for our human rights bill, he was the first person I thought to call. And when I called him, he took my note. He took my call because we knew each other. So politics is really, really important to how change gets made. I guess it's probably simple to say, but people should be involved in local politics.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk about running for city council. I did the same thing in 2015 and for District 7. And that's where I met James Eddy, because he was running in the same district. Mm-hmm. and we have been buddies ever since.
Oh yeah, you go to all those forums, an interminable amount of forums. You become friends, even with people that you don't agree with 100%. You're spending a lot of time together, so you kind of form those relationships. And now I know if you were to call James and ask him for something, he'd be the first one to help you with it, and vice versa, I'm sure. Yeah. But that's what we do. We have to come together. We have to find ways to come together and be with each other. And politics is one of the ways we do that.
Yeah, we could still get along. Now, future goals for you, Jimmy. What are your future goals and aspirations? In terms of promoting diversity and human rights in the city of Jacksonville and beyond.
So one of my big goals is just to help the Human Rights Commission get back to its former power. The Human Rights Commission used to be a commission of the government that had 20 commissioners. Now there's only 11. There used to be 20-something staff members. Now it's down to 7 or 8. And that has an impact. That means, that only X number of cases of discrimination can be researched and investigated. Only this number of people are working on the issue. So that's one of my personal goals. And that has been one of my goals, since the campaign, since the Deegan administration began, and we began doing the transition committee meetings. One of my big ideas is let's get the Human Rights Commission back up to a good level. And when we do that, then we'll begin to see some positive change. We used to do something in the Human Rights Commission, and I did it as a citizen, not as a staff member, but back in the day, we had study circles, which was just an opportunity for a small group of people from different walks of life to get together in a room for 8 sessions, 8 weeks. Maybe it was 4 for some number of sessions, for some number of weeks, and just talk about difference. Just talk about, what is it like to be, a Muslim woman living in a predominantly white Christian city? Well, what's it like to be, a gay person who, lives in a culture that's very much not that? What's it like? And just sharing our stories. And so we need to get back to doing study circles. We need to get back to sitting in rooms with each other. I know COVID kind of got in the way, but we're past that now. We need to get back to just sitting in the room with each other and finding our commonality, finding out how we're the same, and then finding a way to appreciate and respect and even understand the differences that we have with each other. So if we can do a few of those things, I'll feel very good about my time, at the Human Rights Commission and working for the city. I also am very concerned about what happens in the state. The state is of concern to me because, we've had a pretty tough go
Sure.
for the LGBT community during this
Yep.
last 5 years or so. And I'm very concerned about what's happening with Tallahassee. I saw that, we had this great Pride Parade on Sunday, and already there are at least one, local state representative who's saying that Mayor Deegan should not have been in the parade. That
Sure.
sends a bad
Sure.
message. Uh, and that just
Yeah.
makes me very unhappy to hear that kind of thing, because I know her heart. I know why she did it. I know why she was asked to do it. And so I'm just, we've got to look at that. I'm not really thinking with my political hat tonight, but I do think I do think that we need people who are involved and engaged. People like Angie Nixon and Tracy Davis and some really fantastic
Mm-hmm.
local elected leaders. We
Mm-hmm.
need to find a way to get them some help over there in Tallahassee, so they can bring
Yeah.
back
No
some good
kidding.
results for us.
No kidding. I'm trying to get Tracy and Angie on the podcast right now. Their schedules are so doggone busy. Now,
Yeah, well, you got to get them before
advice.
January. You got to get them.
I know. I'm trying to book them in November, so we'll see. Now, advice for aspiring advocates. If you were to sit down with, anyone locally, or abroad, if you were to sit down with someone, what kind of advice, many individuals, they have, a passion, about one project or another, whether it be human rights or equality, inclusion, diversity. What advice would you give to those looking to make a meaningful impact in their communities?
Well, I give this advice. I was actually, like I think I alluded, I was at FSCJ today talking to some students who asked me that very question, like how can we be you in the future? How did you get to where you are?
Yeah,
What I
yeah.
would tell them today is exactly what I wish someone had told me. Pay attention, read the press, know what's happening in the newspaper, whether it's what's happening down the street, down the interstate, or even around the world. Everything that's happening in the world today, in Israel, is going to be relevant to what happens in our neighborhoods in tomorrow. So it's very important in my mind. This is my advice, to stay informed about what's happening in the world. In some ways, that's harder than it's ever been because there are fewer newspapers. It's harder to get good, accurate information. But in some ways, it's even easier because there's a lot more citizen reporting, around the world. It's just tougher to know how to sort through it. But stay informed. That's number one. Number two, look for allies. Go ahead and begin to think about intersections and ways that you can help others. If you want to make change in your own community, or you want to bring forward your own idea, the best way to do that is to partner with others and help them accomplish their own goals. Because with their goals accomplished, with help by you, they are much more likely to turn around and help you. And many hands make light work. That's absolutely the truth. So stay informed, make alliances, and three, show up. Show up. You've got to show up. If you want to, be involved in politics, volunteer on a political campaign. If you want to get into media and break through into something like what you're doing right now, be a production assistant. Volunteer to help, down at the public radio station. Just show up. If you want to, become a public policy person and help, maybe help write laws in Tallahassee or even at the city, you know, start learning now. Read legislation. I know it's boring. I know that it's maddening, but read those bills. Read what the city council is up to. And and watch it. You can go online and watch any city proceeding going back for quite some time.
Yeah.
Go back and watch the HRO vote. Go back and watch, what's been going on lately, and just begin to participate. Everything that we are talking about tonight is built on participation. So go and participate.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. Whenever you're available to do so, go to the rallies, uh, go to the city council meetings if you can. Not everybody is available to do so, but far too often people just don't know that they can go to the city council meeting and sit in and watch. I, it amazes me how many people don't know that you can do that. You can just go to the city council meeting and sit there and watch and listen and find out what they're doing. And then you can go online
And it's free.
and watch the whole process. It's
They
free.
don't even charge you. You get a show for free. It's amazing.
No.
I cut you off with that joke there. You were making a really good point. But yeah, people can go and
No.
and just sit there and watch what's happening. Pick up a copy of the agenda on your way in and follow along. It's entertaining if nothing else, because people are, I'm a people watcher from way back, and that's really what it is. You're kind of watching, the council's doing its thing, the people who come up to talk about public, comment, they talk about their concerns, they're doing their thing. It is fascinating stuff.
I would tell you that some of the most entertaining ones you say entertaining, some of the most entertaining ones that I've been to were first the HRO, and then secondly the taking down the Confederate monuments. Those are extremely entertaining.
Yeah, they can be. They're a little bit tough sometimes for the for the other people in the
Yeah.
audience, because people come with such passion about these things. But you're exactly right.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
will People will say something funny. There will be interesting jokes. It's really fascinating just to watch local government happen.
Yeah, and I hate to kind of say it and put it out there, but it's kind of like you know the website, the people of Walmart.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Oh my
I could
gosh!
probably be
Oh
on that
my
one
gosh!
sometimes.
And well, I tell you what, Jimmy, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, and I don't have a final question for you. I'm just going to ask you to give us a closing thought.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. This has been entertaining. I love listening to your podcast, so it is a real thrill for me to be on. It is really entertaining. And speaking of entertaining, it is entertaining and it's informative. And you've put together a very good program, and the folks that the diverse folks are just really wonderful to listen to. So I just give you that little plug.
Thank you.
It's really an honor to be sitting where so many others have been, and that's just my thought, that we whenever you ask me to do this, here's my closing thought. We've got to support each other. My thing is not to have a podcast. My thing is to do these other things, but your thing is to have a podcast. And if you're going to have a successful podcast, you got to have people to come on and talk to your listeners. Hopefully people who are engaging and who have something interesting to say. So we've got to help each other. I had to come on your podcast. When we were having the HRO, you were right there, all the time, talking about your diverse family and why it was important that we have sexual orientation and gender identity added to our non-discrimination protections.
Yep.
Whenever you have a friend who's an artist, buy their art. Whenever you got a friend who's in a band, go to her show. That's my closing thought. We are all in this together, and there is no way that we're going to get out of the trouble of this world alone. We've got to work together. So show up, be with people, love on people, and when you can't love on people, maybe walk away and just don't say something bad about the people. But we're all in this together, And my thought is that we've got to help each other out. So thank you for helping me out.
Thank you for being here, Jimmy. I tell you what, you're welcome to come on the program anytime, and anyone else in the administration that you work with and share offices with. Tell them they're welcome.
I will definitely put out that invitation. I think you'll get some takers. But thank you again. Thank you so much.
I will see you soon.
Bye now. All right, my friend.
Well, that's a wrap. Another fantastic episode of the podcast. You can find us on all the social media platforms, wherever you surf, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter X, Threads, wherever. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. And on our YouTube channel, don't forget to like, share, comment, and smash that subscribe button. If you're streaming audio for the podcast, you can find us wherever you get your favorite podcast programs. In the meantime, I like to tell everybody, take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time, peace.